Rick, thank you very much for joining me. It's nice to be back in the saddle again, getting Gun Guy TV cranked up one more time. I know a lot of folks are talking on social media about the recent active shooting. I'm not going to opine on that. I think there's a lot of opining going on. You're welcome to do so. I will simply say that in my humble opinion, prayers do help, even though there are a whole lot of people saying otherwise. So if you are of a mind to, please pray for the families of those folks and who were injured, and certainly the children who were killed. All right, with that in mind, Rick is back to tell us what's going on in the California legislature and perhaps nationally. There's a lot of stuff, Rick, that you and I haven't talked about because, well, I've been gone like a mystery man for a while. But I'm not gone anymore, man. I'm back. So what's going on in California and legislatively?
Well, I always enjoy hanging out with you, Joel, on the channel and talking about things. To wrap up as best we can at a time like this, it is always a tragedy when we have something like the Minnesota shooting take place. It's always a tragedy when we look at the families, the victims, and even the first responders who are damaged by seeing what they've seen and had to deal with, and the medical staff. I mean, this involves the whole community. And I think some of the insensitivities and knee-jerk reactions are appalling, to say the least. I do believe that prayer is something that brings people together. And so I agree with you on that point. And I think we need to realize when you're upset doesn't give you the right to go after different people who process differently. That's a right for everybody to process the best way they can. However, on a national news story, while there will be some knee-jerk reactions, I'm sure there'll be some controversial legislation and other things that comes up, because it always does in these cases, unfortunately, and people see this as a way to promote their own agendas. There are national things coming out of California that I think a lot of people aren't catching, Joel. And one of them is highlighted by how this week, and I hate this word, normally would go, because normal's not good. But this week, it's just appalling how bad it's gotten. And that is, this is the time of appropriations in the Capitol. And you and I have talked offline about appropriations multiple times, but this is where it happens 2 times a year. It happens usually around late April, early May, and that is when bills in the House of Origin, meaning if you're Assembly bill, you start off in the Assembly, a Senate bill starts off in the Senate. Its last stop before it goes to the floor vote to move to another house. It's often where we see bills die, is it goes in appropriations. And this is kind of like what you do, Joel, I'm sure at your house. I do at my house. Most of our listeners would do it at their home. You go, this is how much money I have in the bank. This is how much money I have in all the hidden places in my home or business. And this is what I anticipate coming in. And then you have your list of, these are the bills I have to pay. Like if I don't pay my insurance, I'm in trouble. These are the things I would like to do. And then these are the dreamy things. California doesn't do that. California goes and jumbles them all up like they're in some monkey machine with a bunch of balls for a bingo game and pulls things out. And this thing goes and this thing doesn't go. And, oh, by the way, they spend money they don't have. And when I say that, people are always like, why do you say that, Rick? Because we're $68 billion in debt. And because we already have from the office that oversees the legislative budget, that they're telling us that when we come back in January, we're going to go to triple digits in the billions in debt. And so how do you afford anything at this point?
Like, I just want to, wait, what? We're going to be, are you talking about we're going to be over $100 billion in debt in January?
68 billion was right. What everybody's agreed to. And they're saying between 30 and 40, but definitely $32 billion additional for the next 2 years. Which means, yes, we're going to be in 6-digit land.
Wow.
And that's not hard to figure out when you look at the number of businesses and people that have wealth that have moved away from California.
Oh, popping smoke and are out of here. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not going to get better, folks. It's going to get worse. I'm not trying to be the harbinger of bad news. This is just truth. And then when you look at plans like in the hunting area, we've been working with, and this is what's appalling to me, is like we've been working with conservationists, people that normally don't sit at the same table. And you would think somebody like Gavin Newsom would be like, oh, wow, like all the anti hunting people and all the pro hunting people are sitting at the same table saying this is wrong. You might want to take note of that. Just saying, when those two sides that don't normally play together are on the same side going, this is wrong, and are lockstep. And that was a bill that's dealing with $40 million needed to save wildlife during crisis like fire and stuff. And to put it in terms, 40 million can sound like a lot of money because it is to most of us, but that's about the budget for the entire state of New Jersey. And there's a lot of New Jerseys. You might have noticed it could fit in California. So it's a very small amount. It's a very tight amount. But the governor's like, hey, you do know we're $68 billion in debt. I don't know if we have 40 million. Okay, fair enough. Told Cal Fire after all the horrible fires we've had over the past decade, and they're saying that this fire season is going to be just as bad, if not worse. Yeah, I don't know if we have the 130 to 140 million dollars needed for fire abatement because we're $68 billion in debt. But to play political gerrymandering games, yes, we have 250 to 260 million dollars for that. So I just want to show you there's like two things right away.
Well,
And
so I had written down redistricting
yeah,
as something I wanted to ask you about because
yeah.
that's a big deal. I mean, it's a political game. How does that Gavin Newsom's, redistricting nonsense affect any or all of this?
Well, it affects us on a couple levels. So to start off with, all the bills people have been concerned about, the Glock ban bill, which is Assembly Bill 1127, going after Senate Bill 704, which is this firearms barrel bill, and we can talk about more of those later. After the win in Nguyen v. Bonta, where the Ninth Circus, the most liberal appellate court in the land, said, oh, dear California legislature, oh, dear Governor Newsom, you went way too far. You cannot limit the number of things people purchase under a constitutional right. So the 1 in 30, yeah, no, it's not 1 in 30, it's not 5 in 30. You can't do that. Well, that hasn't stopped Assembly Bill 1038, which is, well, how about 3 in 30? Are you guys tone deaf? Did you not hear what the court said? But we have all those bills. Normally in appropriations, we would go testify. I'd be at the Capitol today instead of outside the Capitol today saying, hey, no, here's why, and give all those logical reasons. Except as we're doing this, they're talking on the floors, and then somewhere around noon, they're going to go in between both committees simultaneously, which I have not figured out how to clone myself or teleport back and forth between those two meeting areas. And they're held in two different buildings that are literally like almost a half a mile apart with their own separate security checkpoints, so you can figure it out. They're going to go through 1,400 plus bills in about 2.5 hours, which is about, depending on the committee, 7 to 11 seconds per bill. And you can comment at the end when they're done doing what they're doing. So that's like, the equivalent of me just doing whatever lawn work I want to and reorganizing your yard and going, well, Joel, you got to tell me what you thought about it afterwards. Well, the damage is already done.
That's the equivalent of a dictatorship.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's a dictatorship. That's not a representative republic. That's a dictatorship.
Correct.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and that happened because the normal 2 weeks time we had to go through this process got shortened because of the very thing you brought up,
redistricting.
And that game was done, again, in my mind, like a dictatorship because people voted on a finalized package 10 minutes after it had been finalized. No one read it. The governor had held a private meeting with the Democrats only to pass it. I published in my report to all our members and everything of like, here you go. You can see it was all Dems that voted locked down the party line, an emergency process to do this. And now Proposition 50 is an actual proposition moving forward because the governor did this. And you have to look at the national implications. The national implications, this is a governor who wanted to bring a new constitutional amendment against the Second Amendment to help rewrite constitutionally what the Second Amendment says and impose bans on certain firearms, impose a national age of when you could buy a firearm, all that. He got told by many states, yeah, no. But if he can change Congress and make Congress more and more Democrat and put more and more of his anti-2A people into the process through this gerrymandering and encouraging all the other states that he's on his road trip doing, then he could get it through. And so what he has started in California is I couldn't get what I wanted. He's accusing the president of the United States of being on a power trip. Well, look in the mirror, buddy, because you're a lame duck governor, and the only reason you're doing this is because you want to create a democratically controlled Congress because you want to be the new president of the United States. And you
what are the odds of him actually being able to accomplish that, Rick? I mean, that's a Herculean task, and he's not.
There's a big if to that answer.
Gavin Newsom, as a person, is not the sharpest tool in the drawer. He's not really, as far as I can see, he's not terribly bright. He looks good on, camera. If he's given a script that he follows, he can speak reasonably well. But he's not the sharpest tool in the drawer. He's just not. And so it's got to be the people pulling the strings behind him. I mean, what are the odds that he can actually accomplish his goal of changing the face of Congress by doing this?
I think they're fairly good if the people of California don't wake up.
Well, we've been saying the people of California should wake up for 20, 30 years, and they haven't woken up yet. So I think the odds of them not waking up is fairly significant, they're fairly good odds. The only thing that helps is the fact that a lot of the wealthy people, as you have said many times, have packed up and left. But there's so many low information or no information voters in the state that just are like lemmings. They just go whatever direction that they're told to go. Without any understanding what's going on. I mean, it's pretty frightening. So how do we resist this stuff?
Well, I think part of it is you have to start calling out the truth. And Joel, one of the things I've been speaking about is the federal government released a report, and I can send it to you after we're done recording this so you can post it. But that report goes through the elections of the last two big cycles. And it shows that, like in California, we actually have something to be very proud of, Joel. I mean, for years, Chicago always talks about how it's better at this or better than that than us in Californians. And as Californians, we don't like being in second place. Well, Joel, I'm the first one to tell you and all the people that listen to your podcast, congratulations. California beat Chicago in the number of dead people that voted in the last election cycle.
A dubious honor, to be sure. Jeez, okay.
They had 100,000 dead people, which is the average for Chicago, and we beat it threefold. We had almost 360,000 dead people. And I'm not talking people that died a month before the election, which, okay, maybe it was a mail-in ballot. No, dead for a decade. Dead.
Wow. Wow.
Dead. And I don't think 360,000 people performed a Jesus miracle and rose from the dead so they could vote for Gavin Newsom. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that happening.
Yeah.
No.
Which, when you look at the over 3 million illegal votes that were proved, not hyperbole, that a bipartisan committee went through and looked at, it meant that Kamala Harris didn't win California. Donald Trump did, which means California wasn't blue. It was not deep red, but it was pink.
Come to me! Where's the guy? Come on, step out!
All right, don't say hello. Don't let me do it.
Both of you, step out.
Okay, wait, hold on now, because this is making my brain hurt. Cackling Kamala, beloved by no one, universally despised in the state of California, in case you're from another state and you're wondering about that.
All right.
She still was counted as having won the state, but you're saying that an independent review has come to the conclusion that when you take out the false and illegal or whatever votes, Trump actually won the state.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean,
But wait, that
living
could
where
be
you
one-off.
live in Huntington Beach and I live in San Diego, I'm not terribly surprised that it would win those places, and certainly the rural areas of the state. But you always have Sacramento and L.A., or not so much Sacramento, but certainly San Francisco and L.A., which tend to lean to the left really hard in a lot of respects. That's crazy. So then the question comes, and I know that Rick Grinnell and others, are working to clean up this mess. But how do we take a hold of that and keep that from happening when we have this terrible dictatorship up in Sacramento that does what it darn well pleases and doesn't care what anybody thinks?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think it's an excellent question. One of them is we could say, even with this federal report, well, this is a one-off. And I'm sure a lot of people would like to pitch that idea, which is why I bring you the second part of what has come to light. And that is, it takes a little longer when you're suing and going after a county. But like you said, Rick Grinnell, Carl DeMaio, and many others have been saying that, like, the recall, no, there was just too many people mad at the governor. There's no way he won by the landslide he claimed. So it was the county of Sacramento and two other counties, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but 3 counties they sued. All of them are Democrat-leaning counties. These are not ever been Republican-leaning counties that they sued in. They just didn't have the money to sue every county. They went through. Sacramento, for example, the governor was up by, I want to say, 6 digits. Well, in fact, nope. Not only did he not win defeating the recall, but Senator Brian Dahle, who I like Brian. Brian's a great guy. He's a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. But Brian did not run a very expensive governor campaign. Like, he just didn't have the money behind him to do it. And guess what? He beat Newsom in Sacramento.
And this, okay, and I just got, look. I really try to maintain my state of calm on this show. I try to maintain it anyway, because at my age, having my blood pressure spike is probably not a good plan.
Yep.
And you're not that far behind me, brother, so
Nope.
it
I know.
kind of applies to both of us.
Yep.
I'm envisioning the steam coming out of the ears of gun owners in California as they're learning this. Because that tells me, unless I'm reading you wrong, and I don't think I am, that tells me that what we've suspected for a long time is true, and that is that the Democrats have been stealing elections and stuffing the ballot box in the state of California, and that in actuality, if the real true votes are counted and the wrong ones, the ones that are illegal or completely void, are taken out, that we would have an entirely different government in this state, and we would not now be $63 billion in debt, looking at 6 figures in billions of dollars in debt in January, and we wouldn't have the government going after our firearms rights all the time. Am I reading this correctly?
Pretty much. Yep. Straight up.
And that, sir,
is irritating, to say the least.
With what I used to do for a living in a couple of different places, I can swear like a sailor if I want to, and I really don't want to do that, but I'm very, very tempted to do so because this really makes me mad. And it should make every Californian, honest, hardworking Californian who cares about their government and cares about their state, it should piss them off too. And if it doesn't, I think there's something wrong with them. But this is crazy.
Well, and I know the issue is something that you and I have talked about multiple times on this channel. We've talked about it offside of this channel, and that is, part of the job in politics is to make the other side feel like there's no point in showing up to the fight because it's over. That's what stealing elections does. It makes people say, well, I might as well move because my vote doesn't count. I might as well get out of here because there's no hope of turning it around. When you find out oh, wait, people were stealing. People were silencing. He is a dictator. They have been doing communist, socialist type of programming to go after us. the evidence, the preponderance of evidence is just over the top. It's not wishful thinking, it's not conspiratorial. More and more and more is coming forward.
Which begs the question, and I know it's going to come up in the comments.
Yeah.
Why in the HE double toothpicks have these people not been arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned for this crap?
So also a nod to our dear brother who is no longer with us, Sam Paredes.
Sam, yeah.
How many times did Sam and I say the bane of a lot of what we do is the land of unintended consequences? A lot of things that came out of our community, either political parties sound good, but when played out, aren't so good. So, California back in the 80s had a minor version compared to what's been going on nationally to lawfare, where people thought, well, I'll jam up a politician by suing them or doing this or doing that. And so the Republican control at that time said, yeah, no more. You're not suing politicians, to avoid that. But then when the parties changed, they've abused that. So they do stuff knowing they can't be sued. I mean, that's why we had a Portantino that would laugh at Sam and I and go, yeah, but by the time you could do anything legally to me, I'll be out of office and on to the next office. So have fun. And it would irritate the crud out of us, raise our blood pressure, cause problems. But at the end of the day, he wasn't wrong. I didn't like him for it, but he can get away with it. It's the same thing. People ask me all the time, well, if we know that, why can't we yank Newsom out of office? Because federal law says once your Secretary of State certifies an election, it doesn't matter what you find out afterwards. That's the person in office. And that is what the Dems have banked on. As long as they could rush through that 45-day period to get to the Secretary of State going, I'm in. But here's the irony. If you look at some of the close elections we've had, we went beyond that time period because the Dems went, well, are you sure there's the votes? And there's been all sorts of hanky-panky, and I could name congressional elections all the way up and down to local elections, but that's went on the last couple cycles. It takes our side saying, no, we're going to protest. We're not going to put up with this. You're not doing this anymore. And it takes our side saying, you know what? There was a lot to say for Donald Trump when not only are we going to get enough votes, we're going to get more than enough votes. We're going to make sure we're so over the top. It's why you have Carl DeMaio on voter ID saying, we're not just going for the minimum standard of signatures to get this on the ballot. We're going 1.5 times that because we're going to make it impossible for them to deny us. That's what we have to bring to the table.
I agree. Forgive me. I'm like, very seldom in my life have I been tongue-tied, but I sure am now because I'm just stunned. You suspect this stuff, and sometimes in your mind you go, yeah, but, yeah, well, there's no but. I mean, they've really done this, and now you can't undo it. You can't go back and undo it because the rules, they're playing games with the rules. This explains, at least to me, maybe I'm nuts, but this explains, at least to me, why these people do not want the populace to be armed.
Yeah.
Because if you are of a tyrannical ilk and you're getting away with tyranny because you're using the laws in such a way that you can, there's a risk that if it continues and there is no other recourse, that people look at the Constitution, they look at the Declaration of Independence, which says that when a government is tyrannical, it's the right of the people to abolish it or change it. And this is the whole reason why we have a First Amendment, why we have a Second Amendment, well, for that matter, why we have a Third Amendment, and a Fourth Amendment, and a Fifth Amendment, and a Sixth Amendment. This is why we have these things. And we have the government on the one side during Slow Joe's administration trying to destroy the First Amendment by going after social media companies and that kind of stuff, which arguably is the public square in today's world. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, you have California legislature, and now you have this screaming mob because of a nutcase that went into a school and killed children, using that as an excuse, as they always do, to disarm hardworking Americans who would cause no one harm for the sole purpose of being able to get away with the very kind of crap that we're talking about these people have gotten away with for decades in the state of California.
Well,
now somebody will watch this and go, yeah, but that's just hyperbole. No, it's not. I don't think it's hyperbole at all. I mean, I think this is precisely the game plan. Disarm the public so that they cannot resist.
If you look, I mean, into the person that you just brought up that, will say that or ask that question, this is very simple to bring this home. You look at what happened with the USAID defunding by the president and the Congress, and you look at the fight by multiple judges to try to get injunctions and allow the money to flow. And people are like, oh, well, it's about feeding people in front. No, it's not. Stop. Because if you look at the overall budget, if you don't listen to CNN and Fox and all the other news pundits, you actually go look at the budget. Take a half hour when you realize how much of your tax dollars go to that fund, the percentage, and say, yeah, that's worth me looking into. And you look into it. Well, there's hundreds of millions of dollars to go to fight the Second Amendment. So I want you to think about that. Your tax dollars going to a federal agency to put money to dismantle the Constitution of the United States. Wait, what? And that's documented. But then, how many times over the years, Joel, have I told you, it's Sam, it's I, it's Keeley from NRA, it's whoever, going in there to testify, and it's, 1 to 4 amigos, depending on how they've divided that day's, testimony up, versus 50 from Moms That Demand Action, who were, quote, always volunteers. We're just a good people here. Well, this year, when USAID was cut, the most I ever faced off was 4. And why? Because they're not getting stipends. They're not having their hotels paid for. They're not having their food paid for. They're not having their travel paid for. They were paid protesters. I see at the Capitol, there was never a week that I could walk through with any of my fellow people up in the Capitol without having to, go where the CHP, because they're the Capitol Police, tell you to go to avoid a protest. And what was ironic was we started to get to know the protesters by face. And they would nod us, oh, hey, guys, you're cool. Hey, how's it going? Hey. And then me looking at them going, wait, last week you were here with the union. Yeah, this week you're here with this group. This week you're with this group. You belong to all three? No, I'm getting paid $25, $35 an hour to hold signs up and protest, and they didn't know. But then the press comes down.
So I contribute my time and the show and my money to CRPA and Gun Owners of California so that you guys have the money to fight these battles. And while I'm doing that, the federal government is taking my federal tax money, which is my money, and spending it in opposition to what I'm giving you money to fight for.
Correct. But wait, there's more.
There's more. I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Because now you go and you look at a bill like Berman's 1038, which is the 3 and 30 bill. Okay, simple testimony would be like, buddy, kill the bill because the court said you can't do this. They say, no, we're going to do it. Then you say, well, this is going to cost the taxpayers $1 million when this is over, minimum, because of the money you're going to spend with DOJ lawyers to defend this obviously unconstitutional bill. Like it's not kind of unconstitutional. You've just been told by the federal court, the last level before you go to the Supremes, unconstitutional. The Supremes have already given the information to the lower court, unconstitutional. So it's unconstitutional. Like, this isn't rocket science. But they're like, no, we're going to do this anyways because we don't care that we're spending your money. And to your point, who's fighting these in California? It's the CRPA and a couple other groups that come in alongside us, like Gun Owners of California and sometimes others, depending on the bill. And it costs us, by the time we get to that level, $300,000-$400,000. That's your money too. So yeah. And then, but it's not just that one. Then you look at 1127, which is the Glock ban bill, because it's about a switch that could be put on Gen 3. So here was my brilliant testimony. Not so brilliant. I'm even saying not so brilliant. But here it was. Well, Assemblyman Gabriel, why don't we just pull the Gen 3 that you're so hate off the roster, wait, and replace it with the Gen 5? Because the Gen 5 won't take the switch, so we get rid of the evil switch issue. All the Gen 3 holders of Glocks are ecstatic because they can now go buy the Gen 5 with all the new upgrades. Like, this solves the problem.
Oh, and by the way, you're so
Completely
worried about safety and all that, but we can't get the latest generation of Glock, which is
Right.
so much more robust in its features. It's safer. It's a better gun.
Right, which is what I preached.
Yeah.
That would have solved it. So if you're looking at policy, that would have solved it, and I think our community would have been very happy with that change.
That's not what they want. They want to make the
Nope.
guns go away altogether, right?
They want all the Glocks gone. It has nothing to do with safety. And again, when we say you can't do that because the Bruin decision says you can't do it, the Ninth Circuit has already said you can't do it, they're like, we're doing it. And this has been the trend that Newsom is trying to bring across the country. And if you look, it's not that he's going to do it. You can look at all the states that have 11% excise tax. We're not the only one. And so I look at people and go, what Newsom and his cronies are trying to do is take this show nationally. So for those of you sitting outside watching your channel going, well, that's not where I live, you better look again. Because, well, we defeated this year. Yeah, we defeated the 11%. We used to joke about it on this channel. We called it the zombie bill.
Yeah, because it kept coming back every year. We couldn't kill it permanently. But now it's coming to a zip code near you if you're in some other blue state.
Right. And so this is why I keep telling people the fight is here. What's happening at the federal level is happening at the state level and vice versa. And it's time for people to start realizing that this game with our tax money, this game that's being played with votes and denying the people their rights, this is no joke. It's being proven. It's not a conspiracy because when you have federal reports that you go through, I mean, it's a slugfest to go through the big federal report, but I would tell you at our age, probably read like 20 pages at a time and then put it away, go for a long walk, drop those cortisol levels down a little bit before you read the next 20 pages, because it's infuriating to see how organized and how detailed the plan to steal the vote has been in this country.
Well, with that encouraging news, hey, the thing that's encouraging about that, though, is we now have proof. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just you and me and Sam before he passed and everybody else that cares about this stuff who has suspected this. We've all suspected this stuff, but now we have proof. It's actual. And I think that does a lot to help us understand that it's not a conspiracy. It's not nonsense. It's actually true. So now we can actually do something about it. By the way, I'm glad you mentioned Carl DeMaio. He's doing some great work, and I had kind of forgotten him, and I apologize for that, Carl, if you're watching this, which you probably aren't, but if you are, you're doing a great job. So since we're kind of long here, can you give us sort of a quick view, unless you want to talk about something else, a quick view as to what's going on in the California legislature that we need to be aware of right now?
So the three bills that I've already mentioned, along with a firearms barrel bill, which is Senate Bill 704, which says that now when you want to replace your barrel in your pistol or your hunting rifle or your competitive shooting AR, it has to have a serial number on the barrel, which is, barrels don't have that. And it has to be tracked by a federal system that doesn't exist. And if it doesn't, and this is how insidious they are, if you can't do that, then you can't buy a barrel. Well, wait, you already know that there's no, because we've testified there's no system. And then their reply was, well, then you can't get a new barrel, which effectively takes other firearms out of play because of safety issues, et cetera, et cetera. So this is all part of the, what I just call gun grabbing. And then we've had other bills. We got a lot of bills defeated this session, but we had bills coming after every aspect of the Second Amendment. When it came to activities, they went after hunting, they went after hunting dogs. They were trying to get rid of all sporting dogs out of the state by the end of the decade. I mean, because Labrador retrievers are such a problem. But, and I won't go any further on that because I could all day long, but you know, we've had a successful year, Bill, in this because we had easily, Joel, close to 70 bills that were negative. We're down to like the final 6 to 7 bills.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that. I really don't. I think they get focused on the ones that actually make it to a certain point, and they think that's all there is. There's not. I mean, what's the average every year of all these, of how many bills we start off with that are all bad?
Well, we bat consistently. Sam and I were joking a few months ago about batting averages, and we bat about a 960 lifetime batting average, which means if we were playing baseball, we'd be in the Hall of Fame. But of course,
no, if you were playing baseball, you would be the Hall of Fame.
But of
there wouldn't be anybody else in it but you. That would be it.
We always hear about the bills that get through, and then my reply to that is, yes, some bills get through, but then if you think of our litigation record and getting injunctions on those bills and not allowing them to come to pass, or the ones that do winning, we do a pretty good job of defending gun owners in this state. And that, I think, is a legacy for Sam. It's a legacy that we're always continuing because we ride on the backs of the people that came before us. I'm very cognizant that, in CRPA, I'm walking on the backs of a Jerry Uphold, a Tom Pedersen, a Roy Griffith, the people that preceded me in this position. Those are all the things that we do. And, someday somebody, hopefully when I turn this over, will walk on, I'll be the addition to that, and we'll have carried the torch properly so they can carry it. But I would close with you on that, this is the 250th anniversary of the country. And I've been pointing this out everywhere I went. If you go back and look at the lead up, we had taxes. And I mean, I always think it's funny because George Washington said anything more than a 3% tax by the government gave people the right to revolt. Wow. How we have forgotten that.
I don't know. We're lucky if we keep 3% of our money. I mean, it's crazy the way that they tax us. It's nuts.
But we also look at that, there was the Boston Massacre. There was all sorts of things, tar and feathering. None of those did we turn on our government until our government came to take our firearms on April 19th in 1775, 250 years ago and changed. And then we said that was the bridge too far, and we became Americans that day. They called us terrorists. Didn't matter. We became Americans. We fought back. We fought hard, and we set up this model nation for the rest of the world. So I looked at people when they say we shouldn't have to fight for our rights. That's truly what makes you an American, is fighting for your rights to have a firearm. And that is something that we continue in this 250th anniversary, our 150th of CRPA. And I'm cognizant that it can be tiresome and pain, but it's what separates us from the rest of the world.
I want to point out that there are really, when you get right down to it, there's a lot of people that fundraise off this stuff. But when you really get down to it, there are two organizations that fight for your rights in the state of California. One is the California Rifle and Pistol Association, and the other one is Gun Owners of California. Unfortunately, we just lost our very, very good friend, Sam. And I don't say that, hey, people will say that because they see a guy once in a while and they go, oh, my very, very good friend. No, we were actually very good friends of Sam Paredes, and we both miss him already. So, but to Rick's point, whoever takes over for Sam Paredes, and I think we already know who that might be, stands on the shoulder of a giant. Mm-hmm. Because of all the work that Sam did and all the work that's been done by CRPA. And at some point when Rick retires, somebody will stand on his shoulders, and again, standing on the shoulders of giants. We've got to fund these organizations. We can't expect them to fight with nothing. And I know that's tough because everything in California costs a fortune. And the cost of living here is ridiculous. But at the same time, we look at the founding fathers, they gave everything to fight for their rights and to fight to establish this country in the first place. It's been around 250 years. We can't let it fall now. And when we've got people like Gavin Gruesome Nuisance or the crazy, I won't say it, people in Sacramento who all want to be dictators. What was that?
In excremento.
In excremento. Thank you, sir. I'm going to use that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We've got to fight this battle. So please do I'll put links in the description. And even if you don't see them there, you can always go on a search engine and go CRPA, and it'll come up, or Gun Owners of California, it'll come up. And fund these organizations, please. If you're not a member, you need to be. And if you're in another state and you say, well, yeah, but I'm not, it doesn't matter. This is coming to a zip code near you, as we've discussed. But the battle is here. So make sure you're funding these organizations, please. Is there anything else we didn't talk about that we have time to talk about? There's a lot we didn't talk about. We can talk about the next time.
No, I think we can leave some stuff for future times. Hopefully you'll have me back, because I would love to talk to you guys. But
probably next week, actually.
But I think I want everyone to realize we are winning. We're winning battles. We've won seats. We just had Natasha Johnson down here in Southern California get elected in a very tight election. We were able to get her across the line. That's another 2A member. We are starting to change the look of the Assembly and the Senate. We have huge opportunities to do that in this upcoming election. So do follow both of the organizations, because we've got a huge ground game that we've put together over the last probably 6 years now, and we're making a difference. I mean, there are 5 seats that the Dems said could not be taken that have been taken, and we're going to take 5 more, and that will break the supermajority. So, look, things are headed in the right direction. We're winning in the courtroom, we're winning in the political game, and we're doing a pretty good job of not just holding the line, but we also got a positive bill, 2A bill passed this year, first one in 35 years. So we're flipping the script back in the right direction, and so now's not the time to leave us or run from us. Now's the time to double down.
Well, and as frustrating as it has been, I know I can talk, as frustrating as it has been because these people have been cheating, what you've just outlined is the fact that the system the Founding Fathers put together actually works. Mm-hmm. It just takes time, it takes a lot of work, and it takes extraordinary patience. But we have to put in the work. Tearing the system down is not the answer. The answer is use it, and clean it up. Hey, Rick, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Let's do it again maybe next week and see if we can talk about the other stuff we haven't talked about in quite some time. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate it. Have a great week.
You too.